Okay, hi everyone. I will talk about the preferences in the config file that store all the preferences, the key maps, the tools key mapping that I've created for this kit. So first things, I have there the preferences of Modo opened, and here is the Modo Preferences CFG file. So it's stored in the kit folder under config, and under the configs folder you will see different CFG files. So I will open this here. You have different CFG file already that save different preferences. So for example, those that are really important are probably the preferences, okay, the preference here, and the key map. So I will talk about those. You have also a set of different CFG file for the navigation system in the viewport. So if you are using the Modo mouse key map or the tablet mode for Modo, you will have to open those zip files that are contained into the kit and unzip them here into this folder. So in my case, I'm using the Maya navigation system for the mouse. So I have this navigation_mouse CFG file. So if you need a different navigation system like Modo navigation system, Softimage or 3ds Max, or from, in my case, Maya, you just have to open it and maybe delete this one and open the 3ds Max mouse navigation system and unzip it here. Okay, so you can only have one of those unzipped, right? So it's up to you. This one is not necessary, but yeah, you have everything here. So just to let you understand how it works, here I have the Notepad++ application that lets me open a CFG file and edit its value. And here I have different properties here for the animation, for the application, for the autosave, procedural modeling, etc. There's many different stuff in there, but all of those settings are the same as here under animation, application, autosave, all those little menus here in the preferences. So for example, I will show you. You have a comment on the side that describe what is this line about, and the different action, or I can say settings you may define. So for example, I will just maximize a bit this. So you see here we are under the animation FPS, and I'm working with the NTSC 30 settings. So I have 30 frames per second always set up in my default scene. Okay, so you have different settings that here define 30 frame, 29, 97, 25, 24, etc. So you have all the different settings here as a command, so you can change everything. So for example, if I continue here under the application, I have defined some settings like when I create an item, I create it as faces, or instead of subdivision, or the default texture name is different than the default one. It's not texture, it's 00_texture. It lets me have some better control about the name of it. I prefer to have the 00 to tag the map 1 or the UV set 1 into Unity. At least that's the UV set 00 this way. So it's much better. For that case, you have different settings like checking for updates. You have actually it's set to update always. But if you go there in the line, you see you have different settings. You can say never, always, every launch, daily, weekly, etc. So everything is commented here for everything. So it defines those stuff on the updates, the usage statistic, send, the image format, the index style, if you prefer to get the underscore for the name of the new elements, like this, so item underscore 2, for example. So all those settings are there. You can change them and save this CFG file, this preferences file, into your own config file. So if you have to change this and save it, you save it and you zip it in order to get back, open it back if you do some update on my kit. So that's important to know, that if you change things here, it will be loaded into Modo. But also if you change stuff directly into Modo, it will override any settings that you have there, okay? But I propose you to change those settings first and set them as you wish. And this way, whenever you have to reset the preferences of Modo, if you are updating to the next release or you have some bugs and stuff, you can always load this kit and have directly all your preferences set up. So it's really a convenient way to process and prepare your workstation. So you have not all the different settings, but the most important one, I think, in my case. So the undo, the max undo. Here you have also the sleep UV state to last. If you may change this to whatever you want. You have some settings for the autosave, for example. The autosave time every 5 minutes, numbers of revision, so 10 in my case, and it's saved in a specific location under a red hard drive set. So if you want to save this over the network, on different location, you can change this here. You have also the ghost throw style mode. So in my case it's set to shade. So you have all those settings here with the opacity. The color of it here is embedded into the color, not the color scheme, yes, the color scheme of my shortcut into Modo. So you may have Modo running like this. I will just maximize it. You can set different color scheme here. So the default one for Modo is this one. If you are, I'll go to, okay, so for example, if I go in a different layout here and maybe change the color scheme, you will see that it changed to a specific layout. So if I use 3ds Max, it changed to a different layout and the colors will change. Not just the background, but the highlight of the meshes and the instance and those kind of stuff. For example, Maya have a grayish, more bright gray background. It changed here, okay? But in my case, I use the keyboard shortcut to change it. So Control Alt 3 will change to my own color scheme that is over there. So smaller dark color scheme. So under the preferences, those settings are kept, but you have also different stuff like the copy-paste properties and those kind of stuff that lets you manage the way you are copying, pasting the elements. So for example, if I go back to Modo and I create just a basic cylinder and select a polygon and copy it, when I will copy it, it will deselect, oops, it will deselect the faces after copying, because that's set here. So usually I prefer to do this. So Control C, it's copy the polygon and deselect, and now I can paste it and it automatically select what I've pasted. Okay, so that's some settings that I prefer to have directly into my my settings. So I will open back the preferences. Okay, so we have those settings here. So copy the selection, paste deselection, set to 1, so it means enable. Okay, normal. You have different kind of settings. Sometimes it's Boolean kind of settings like those, sometimes it's different. So you have also the save scene and export properties that lets you tag your scene with your name. So in your case, you need to edit this address. So here you have the address that you can change to your own, don't know, outstation page, website, blog, Twitter, anything. And at the bottom side, your name. Okay, so it's inverted here, but that's the same kind of stuff. The switcher bar properties here, the render properties also, if you prefer to render on multiple thread or only on one, or automatic, it's up to you. I've defined this on my own settings. The bake border size, that's here under field rendering. You can define the bake UV border size to 16 pixel. So in my case, usually I work with 2K maps, so I usually bake with this kind of settings. So you have all a chart with all the different settings here into the preferences to let you know what's the best solution. You have also the display properties here for the OpenGL. Usually I use the advanced mode, but with a specific setup. So usually when you will work with the advanced GL mode, you may have some settings that are common for any viewport. But in my case, I created two different presets. One is AVP game, and one is for the UV texture. So when I press 6 on my keyboard, on the numpad, usually you got the reflection here, this way. When you press 6, you should get this normally by default, but I didn't use it many times, just for checking sometimes, but not so much. So as I'm working much more with the advanced mode, I always have my keyboard shortcut for the AVP game presets here. So if I press O and go to the advanced options, I already set some things. So for example, having the lighting with the scene, lights and environment, just having basic material settings, no anti-aliasing, no multi-sampling and line anti-aliasing. It's okay, it could be fine, but most of the times it's much more performance cost, so it's okay. I prepared this preset just for that. So if I continue on the preferences, we'll open them back on the side. So we have also other information like the 3D information overlay. So it defines if you want to see the channel name visibility, the deformer state, the GL count, the polygon, the component mode, if it's in polygon mode or edges or snapping state, UV coverage. So those are here on the bottom right side of the viewport. So here we have no item, so if I select this one, it gives the mesh name. So I rename it like this. Okay, it's now highlighted. It tells you if that's in polygon and face mode, the number of channels if there's a channel selected, deformers, the poly count in triangles, this one is the triangle mode, and the grid spacing. So this is really basic, but having those already set up when you reset your preferences and or jump to a new release, or even if you are working with other people that have to launch the same same settings, it could be really interesting to have the kits on the different platform, and this way you can set up your own pipeline with no error at all, because many users may have different kind of presets for the matrix, for the different color management, for example. So if I open the color, there's a color management preset here. So the settings here define the way the color management is took by Modo. So it have just basic presets that are always set up. So if you are working with floating images like EXR or anything, it's always using linear mode for this kind of image. So it lets you really have a pipeline that is always constrained and I can say really robust in a context where you are exchanging and sending files between people. So this was just for the preferences, and you have other kind of preferences that are separated. So for example, we have the color scheme. So I talk about the color scheme here. I'll just open this one. Here you have the color scheme that are set up for the preset that we have talked before, the one that is linked to the dark color scheme. So if you go to the preferences, they are already open. Whoops, where there are. Okay, so if you go to colors here, you have some presets. Okay, so my preset is this one. It didn't change many things here, it just changed the background here to match the different color of the UI. But you can save your own and attach this to the key map. It's up to you. Or change the original one, this one, and save it as a CFG file. But the best way is to change things and value here. So we have talked about those preferences, and also we have key maps attached to this. So by default, I tend to set my all my different key maps relative to my kit. So when I call the main pie menu, the master one, I will say, master pie menu that call everything. It's Control Alt Shift and S. So if you are there, you press Control Alt Shift and S, and you have all the different sub-categories for the different workflow. Okay, so from there you can open this tab, for example, for the Mesh Fusion workflow, or the display toggle for toggle the center of the selected object, or clear, or I don't know, create a group with these elements or anything. So this is the master pie menu, but this pie menu and those inside it, so UVs, setup, export tools, select, modeling, cleaning, mesh and mesh open, mesh fusion, display, etc., can be called with different key mapping. So in my case, I use a mouse, a specific one, and also a gamepad that have some key mapping attached to it. So when I press those keys, Control Alt and F1, I can call the different menus. So this one is especially for the vertex normal work and create set hard edge, soft edge, create cage, toggle cage, etc. This one is for the setup one. So I have different. This one is a new one, but anyway, you have duplicate node and add selection set and change the drop action mode and etc. Change the center of the elements. So for example, if I select this face, let's say this one, I can call this with Control Alt F2, and after I go to center tools and move center and rotate, or move center and rotate center to polygon. Okay, so now I have my center of this object centered and oriented in relation with this selection. So you have plenty of menus. This one is for the exports. Then we have the selection pie menu. So all of them are accessible right there in those. This one is them for the modeling, etc. You have all of those here. So they are called by those key map, so you can change to whatever you want. It's up to you. Just remember to save your own CFG file to a specific location in order to get it back if you update the kit. Because I prefer, I mean, you may prefer to erase all the different files and reinstall the kit. So I have another one for the baking menu. This is a new one that I'm working on with Control Alt Shift B in order to open a baking menu to load some presets. Sorry. And you have also Control Alt N for the normals when you want to work on normals and have some different commands attached to them. Control Alt Shift X is for the palette. So, oops, I not close this. So if you use Control Alt Shift X, you can call the groups. You can call many different things like the event log, or you can call the different palettes. You can call those also with a different key map by default in Modo, but not those, I think. So I created this one by myself because that's those that I use the most. So activate, for example, the GL FPS analyzer. It can be useful if you have some issue. So I will turn this off. Okay. You have those. You have other actions like weld vertices with Control Alt W. So for example, I will select this point, Control Alt W, and it connects those 2 points together. Okay, just a simple one, but you can have also Control Alt and 2 for changing the selection to boundary. Oh, top 2, it didn't work. Should check. It's this one of when you click to the boundary. Should check this one, why it's not working the way I wanted. Probably because I'm using an AZERTY keyboard at this time. Oh, so that's probably this one. On a QWERTY keyboard it should work. Okay, so continue on this. We have I'm using also oops, sorry. Whoa. I'm using also replay from Adam's kit. So Control Alt R will replay the recorded macro. So for example, if you create a new macro, you do some stuff, you record the macro and then stop the recording. You can run the recorded macro by pressing Control Alt and R. Okay, so for example, if I select this polygon and we'll start the recording. I press B, do a bevel. Okay, I stop it and I stop the recording macro. Now I can select any polygon and press the key and it will launch the macro. Of course I made an arbitrary section after, so it didn't work the way I wanted. So do it again. Yes. So B. Okay. Drop. Then I will stop the recording. And now I can select this and press the key and I can easily repeat the macro just this way. Control Alt P to push, to call the push tool. So for example, I select those, Control Alt and P. So I can call this way the push tool directly with this key map. You have also Control Alt Shift D to duplicate without to duplicate the object without the link into it. So if I go to, we'll go back to small mesh ops. I'll remove this this view. Okay, delete. So we will just add a new mesh. We'll remove that. Okay, so N, add selected, and we will create a new mesh up node, like the cylinder. Okay, so now we have the mesh with the cylinder, and if I press Ctrl Alt Shift D, it duplicates the node, but only this one, right? And there you have still the link in between. So it's up to you. I duplicate this way. Also Control Alt with 3 will set the color scheme as I told before. So for example, if I go to the scripting, it's already set. Where I can go, I didn't set this up. It's already set everywhere. Okay. Anyway, we've talked about this before. The Control Delete will remove the edges, but without deleting the vertex. So, for example, if I do a selection here, triple those. Okay, that's a mesh object, so I couldn't work on it. Of course, I will create a new one. You can triple directly a mashup setup, of course. So I will open back and create a new cylinder that I can now triple. So Shift T. Now we have tripled edges, and so if I select those and those inside, I can use Control and delete, and it will delete everything, I mean all the edges, but still keep the vertex. Okay, so you can do this way. So delete edge and keep vertex. In this one, you have the preset load for the AVP game preset for the AVP, so advanced viewport. Okay, so it says use AVP instead of reflection. So if you press 6 on the numpad, it will change to the game AVP preset. So it says numeric 6. You have also some other key map for the Zen. I clear also some key. Those keys are important, at least not on the 13 release, but on the 12 and 12 to, I mean, all the different Modo release till 13, you have a strange bug that was fixed and that will be fixed in the 13 release. That was when you were creating some scene, okay, and you press Control Q instead of Control A, for example. Models pops you up a window. Did you wanted to close the scene without saving it? Even if you press cancel, it erases all the undo. So I just cleared those key in order to remove any mistake with the key map. So it's important. So for example, I will do so here I have some undo possibilities. Okay, I can go back. So I will go redo, so Control Shift Z. So if I do now close scene and cancel, if I want to Control Z, it's a out of undo. So this one is a bug that was present since a long time, a decade, but now it will be fixed on the next release, on the 13 release, I think. So this is why also I removed those key maps, especially. But you have still Control O to open a new scene, or you have all the different basic key maps. Just for quitting Modo and for closing the scene, it's removed. You have also a Control Alt Shift P to set polygon part if you want, and also Control Alt Shift and J to launch the game mode. So if you press those keys, now you can move with the game mode move. Okay, so press escape. So you have those key maps. You have also key maps for settings edge weight. So I have those already set. So for example, I will create a new, let's select all the polygon. Okay, delete those, create a cube. And now if I press Shift Tab, I go to the subdivision mode. And if I select a polygon and press Ctrl Alt E, it sets some weights on the weight map. So if you go to list and weight maps, and you will see that the subdivision weight map is set, and you have some value already set here. So if I press again here, oops, we go back to the AVP game mode. Okay, so Control Alt E. Okay, so it's setting up the the weight map directly here. Okay, so we can set the edge weight this way. That was those vertices that we didn't remove with the delete edge previously. Okay. So you have all those different settings. One is for the bridge also. For calling the bridge, you may use Ctrl-Shift-B. That can be interesting to bridge things like this. So for example, I will copy this, move this on the side, Ctrl-V, select this polygon, this one, and now I can use Ctrl-Alt-Shift and B. Oops. Ah, that's for the baking. Oh, Ctrl-Shift-B, sorry. Ctrl-Shift-B, and now I'm in the bridge, and I can bridge this way. Okay. So what is interesting also is when you are using some tools, like the bridge, you can use the up and down arrow, for example, and it adds some segments and change some attributes into the tool here. So those are different stuff. It's here under the tools key map. So for example, if you create a cube or a sphere or a cylinder, you have all the different primitive over there. You can change some attributes just by pressing different key. Okay, so for example, if you create a cube with the cube tool, so we will create a cube by pressing the cube tool and create it here. Okay, so we have this cube. Now if I press X, okay, so Shift X, I can align this cube to the X 0 position, you guys can see. If I press Shift Z, now I align to the Z axis, and Shift Y to center it on the Y axis. Okay, so those are really simple, but it lets you control some attribute of the cube. So for example, I can augment segments on the X, on the Z, on the Y. So it's controlled by right, left, up and down arrow key, and page up and page down also. So you can see you can add some segments, control those. That's really convenient, and especially for the cylinders. So I'll go to cylinder, create the cylinder this way, and with the up and down I can add some edges, some segments on the height, and same thing on the sides. Okay, so that can be really interesting to have those control to align things really quickly this way. Okay, with just few keys you can control and add those. You may didn't see things correctly with this keyboard over there, but okay, you understand the setup here. Okay, so here you have all the different key preset. I didn't walk through all of them, but yeah, you have plenty of them here, and also for polygon bevel and those kind of stuff. So for example, if we select this here and press a B to create a bevel, and now use We'll do this again. So the polygon beaver, if you press J or I, you will change the value of the polygon beaver. If that's with the groups, so if I open this here, you see that the groups polygon is unable. If I press J, you have this attribute that is changing. So if I have the mouse over here, I cannot change it. It's always into the view of the viewport. Okay, so if you are in the viewport, then you can use the key. Okay, so I can use I to change the inner or outer mode for the polygon beaver. So those kind of stuff are all documented here. Okay, so same thing with the mirror generator or anything. It can be really interesting to have some actions and settings to control those. So for example, if you select this polygon, we'll move this a bit, and we will call the mirror deform. That's in the deform or duplicate. Yeah, duplicate. So the mirror here is set. So if I press X, that's on the X. If I press Y, that's on the Y, and Z on the Z. So you can change this way the setting that you have usually here just by pressing some key when you are using the tool. So that's really convenient. So we've covered most of the preferences and config file. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and tell me if you need some more information over there. See you, bye bye.